Hello. Thank you for being here. I have sat with this video and asked myself, okay, do I want notes? Do I want do I want to have a whole presentation? Am I like how in depth do I want to go? Like thinking about, okay, do I need to make each point a 10-minute video? So I wanted to get this out there. And for if you are receiving this, anything that I'm like, oh yes, I'm gonna add on to that. I've put us into a special little list where every time I do send out updates, you will get it. So most likely I already have your email or I'm gonna ask you for it. So yeah, you won't miss out on any of the juice. But I thought that I would capture my energy as I'm sort of like in the moment and going through it because today was so I put out the post about 226K in 24 hours in April and I took 2 weeks off. It was my first time solo traveling. On top of that, it was my first time traveling with my dad, like just the two of us without any other family there. And that in and of itself is I'm probably going to touch on it today, but that in and of itself is a huge milestone. So, today I did some things that were sort of like brought this full circle, and I'm just feeling like at the end of the day, I like to sit in gratitude and just sort of reflect and like just pray anything that I'm like, okay, God, what are you wanting to show me? What are you wanting to me to learn from today? And so I've just been feeling in the energy. So I'm like, I'm gonna get this, and then that way, any updates you have I will make sure that you get it. So, one of the first lessons that I talked about in the post was getting comfortable with failing, and it's actually not like getting things right in business all the time isn't the blessing that you think it is. And I'm going to fully ask that you receive the words that I speak today with like just the most generous interpretation of it, or at least don't I would hope that you don't assume the worst of me. Just at least be open to the ideas that I'm presenting, and obviously this will tie into my third point, but like this is just my experience, what I've witnessed as I've guided people through this and like done the work myself and seen other people go through the work, been in spaces where people are immersed in the work. So what I really see is I'm just relaying, and I feel like that's where I really shine is like observing patterns in how people move. And business really is, as much it's like maybe 20% strategy, but like 80% is the work you do on yourself, and that's why it's such a beautiful journey. I think that's why we're also called to entrepreneurship. And I think that's why this is such a beautiful gift. Anyway, so thank you for letting me take up some of your time and for investing your time with me. Like it truly means a lot. And even though I'm not running this live, I would love to like for you to pause and think about like as you take on these, like as you hear my lessons and as you get to hear my experience and my reflection of my time on this earth and my milestones within business, like what your intention is and what you want to get out of it. And let's be an active participant, even though this is not live, but I'd love to hear all of your takeaways. Anyway, so first point, get comfortable with failing because getting it right all the time is not the blessing that you think this is. And I think a lot of people talk about how hard business is, and well, there's both sides. Whatever you look for, you will find. If you want to look for evidence that business is hard, you will find it. If you want to look for evidence that business gets a bit easy, you will equally find it. That so one, that awareness, but then two, choosing what path you actually want to go down. I know that can be quite an activating, even triggering piece of conversation. So I just ask that you use your discernment. But a lot of the times people talk about hardships in business. Like it's normal and it's common for people to talk about how hard it is and for someone to be like, oh, I'm in the same boat, da da da. Da." But I feel like there's a double standard where the people who get it all the right in business all of a sudden have this expectation placed on them that they can never mess up. And it's something that we as a society do. I think like as we become more and more conscious, which I'm such a fan of, like as more and more people become aware of how their own experiences of people are completely their thing, like they take responsibility for parts of it as well. I think it's really important to note that like also getting things right isn't the blessing that most people think it is, right? It's not always um like it's like, oh, lucky me. But also I think when people say, oh my gosh, I've gone this right, I've gone that right, um, it's almost like we're not allowed to have our hard moments. And I actually created a post on this about how I see this all the time where all of a sudden, like, celebrities in the come up, like, good on them until they make it. And then it's like, how dare they not tell us all the ways that they're investing? Like, it's okay for people to be struggling, but at a certain point, if they've made it or if they've quote unquote got something that you don't, now we will find every reason to discredit them, because what that actually does is it discredits ourselves. That's a whole tangent in and of itself. Um, as you probably like, if this is your first time experiencing work with me, this is probably quite surprising, because on the front end, I rarely talk about these things because I think it can be overly dramatic and people can take it and run with it. But I do believe this is a big part of the work, is like getting to know yourself in business, because unless you sell software and like the software just sells itself. You are in the business of business and like creating relationships with people. So I think it's super important to understand the dynamics that drive people. So, coming back to my point, where having it right all the time isn't always a blessing that you think it is, because one, getting it right all the time is just an identity or like a false image that you create for yourself. And it's something that, because there are always seasons in life when it doesn't work for you, the pressure and the expectation from yourself can be crushing. And I've experienced this myself, as well as helped clients through this, where um they've had things right, they've gotten things very easily, things that other people would look at and go, man, I've worked years and years and years and years for this, and you get it so easily. And because of that, there's this unconscious pressure or expectation from society that you must be grateful for that. And if you don't, and if you're not grateful, if you want to change it in any way, then you're like, actually it's a personal attack against everyone who is struggling with that, because how dare you struggle with the thing that I like, how dare you not be grateful and like keep the thing that I'm actually really struggling with. And so the lesson that I learned in this was, I got caught up for so long in the game of doing the things that I know that I'm good at. And it all makes sense. It all makes sense. We're never right or wrong. It's just how we feel in the moment. But I've caught myself in times where I've really wanted to take things in a different direction in my business. Like, I've just actually started a couple of new ventures behind the scenes, done some soft launches. It's such an exciting time. And like, bringing it to life is a whole other journey. But getting to that point, really, like, I was met with some really strong resistance, because one, I had to release like 50% of the responsibility and the control. And when you release 50% of the responsibility and control, um, you don't have the option to be good at it. Like, because even if you're good at your part, 50% of it relies on other people. But I think this is where not enough not enough business owners are thinking to that scale, which is why a lot of the businesses with a really good mission and driven by really heart-led leaders and founders don't get their word out and don't impact people the way that they desire to impact people, because they don't understand that it's better to actually have two minds, or two armies, or like two people, two energies, two like things working behind it, than like one. It's always better. And this comes back to like Jeff Bezos. He once said, it's like, I would rather have 1% of a really, really big pie than 100% of a smaller pie. And this is where like the first, I guess, ego check, or the first check comes up, is like, once you get to a point where business is good, and like you worked for like to a certain point where, like, for example, business comes easily to you. If you feel like you didn't really struggle with that, one, it's probably because you're not in a challenging enough vehicle, and you'll soon find yourself very disenchanted with how you're living your life because you know you're not pushing yourself. But also, two, what I see is um, you get scared to leave that behind because it's almost like, once again, that judgment of how can you leave behind something that I have wanted, majority of people have wanted so badly, um, that, like, how can you give it up like that? That's such a big risk. And 100% this could just be all our own stories and things in our own heads, but I do think there is a level of that. Like, I see this play out in Facebook groups or communities I'm in. Like, people can come in with their problems, like complaining about, like the price of petrol, complaining about um the cost of living going up, and it will be flooded with supportive comments like, that's okay, like, we're all feeling it and it's okay to feel this. And a business owner coming in, because the space is meant to support, like, well, it was designed, that the community I'm thinking of specifically was designed to support these business owners all the way up to seven figures. And someone was saying, I'm in a scaling phase of my business, and actually, I'm really struggling with getting so much time back on my calendar. And immediately, like, one, there weren't as many comments. So I don't think there were many like, necessarily less percentage of people that felt that way. I think there were just a less percentage of people willing to share that they also felt that way. But like the top 10 comments were like, what was your point in sharing this? Why would you share this? Like, what, like, cool, you have so much freedom, like, is that really something to make a problem? And I think that in and of itself is a different problem, but it's related to get comfortable with failing, or at least the idea of failing, which might mean getting hate, or it might mean in other people's eyes not doing the thing that you're supposed to do, or like having ulterior motives, or failing really, in my eyes, is just there being a mismatch in the identity that I'm trying to present or preserve and how other people are experiencing me. That's what failure is. Or how the reality or what the current results are presenting. So, like, for example, a business failure, it's only a failure if I try and present myself as someone who's always good at business, because then the results contradict that. Whereas if I'm someone who's committed to the craft of business, who's committed to the craft of making the world a better place, of committing to the craft of making money the least interesting thing, like when it comes to running a business, so that these entrepreneurs with good hearts can change the world, if that is my craft, there is no failure. Because every single day, if I show up to do that, and it's dependent on me, it's not dependent on external results to tell me whether or not I've failed, I can never fail. And even when I show up and maybe there are things on my to-do list that I don't get to at the end of the day, I haven't failed, because it's who I am when I'm showing up, right? And yes, caveats to that, but this is just a general broader conversation, and I'm happy to continue some of these conversations and have these. I know some of my clients will watch this and they'll be like, oh my God, I'm going to message you. And I'm like, yes, let's have a chat. I'm all about critical thinking and challenging, and I love deep chats. So don't wish to get things right, because the sooner you actually get things right and you realize you got it right, you'll want something else. You'll realize that that wasn't what you wanted to get right. And I watched a Vanessa Lau video where she talked about, how she read the book by Naval Nava. I don't know how to say his name, but like he's a really famous book guy. And he was like, you have two lives. Your second life starts when you realize that you only have one. And in the terms and in the when it applies to entrepreneurs, I think it begins when you realize, like, you have two chances. Your second chance begins when you realize that you only have one chance, and that chance never runs out. And that chance is actually depending on you choosing to take up what life has to offer you. Okay, so that's that first lesson. The second lesson, people won't understand but do it anyway. And this is something that when I shifted from what I was doing, which was all reliant on me and like my genius and what I did, um, my operations were very, very profitable, right? Like, it wasn't like I wasn't making money, but it got to a point where right now I'm working on a really cool venture that, like, I believe, and the investors and the people on board believe it has billion-dollar potential. Like, this is truly exciting stuff. Like, I feel like my brain had a brain baby, brainchild. But there are going to be some people that don't understand because they're like, why, like, things are working so well, or why would you want to change this because it's already being done, or it's never been done, you know? And so people won't understand but do it anyway. The second part to this that I didn't put on the forefront is, don't expect people to understand. If you have a mission, a vision that's put on your heart, I truly believe that God gave it to you for a reason. Now, most of the people who have something to say, so there's two parties, the people you want to understand and the people who just will tell you that they don't understand, or they do, and you don't really care for it. It's like, it's not like, and I don't mean care as in, you know, any heartless thing, but I mean care as in that their opinion wouldn't have stopped you anyway. Like, if you were just walking out onto the street and some random across the road was like, I don't like your shirt, you're probably not going to be like, okay, cool, let me go home and change my shirt. Those kinds of people. So there's going to be the people that you care for, like, when it comes to their opinion, and then there are people that you don't necessarily care for. And I think the first group of people, the people that you really care for, don't place the expectation on them to understand. And this was my biggest lesson when it came to my dad. No matter how much I try to explain to him what I was doing, and if you knew the history of it, it's actually crazy. I thought that that relationship was irreparable because in my mind, I placed the expectation that if we were to have a relationship, he had to understand and support what I wanted to do. And I realized that that's very unfair. Like, I'm doing to him the thing that I wished he would stop doing to me, which is place his expectation of what he wanted on my life onto me. And so the moment I dissolved that, I had the most peaceful and healing trip, 2 weeks solo with him. And I truly think it's because I was able to drop the expectation of who he should be in the moment and actually say, like, the people that I care about, their opinions about, I'm not expecting you to say what I want you to say so that I feel good, but actually come as you are, and that gets to be enough. And whatever I can't handle in your enoughness, in your come as you are enoughness, that's my work to do. And that has made my communication with my dad 10 times easier. And if you know a lot when it comes to money, a lot of your money stuff usually relates to like, money is very masculine energy. And I really think that I see this all the time in my work as well, is like our relationships to money, receiving money, jobs, careers, ambition, drive, that kind of thing, usually will reflect our relationship with a fatherly figure. And so it was no coincidence that when I worked through that, money just started flowing like that. And this had been work that I'd committed to on levels and levels and levels. And I'm not saying that we're done by any means, but each time I've been blown away with a level of, whoa, I didn't think this was possible. I thought this was years and years and years away, and I thought it required, like, all of these things. I thought it required 1 million followers. I thought I needed like 100,000 people on my email list. I thought I needed like to run ads. I thought I needed a full sales team. And it was just like, I truly believe it's so divine when you just surrender to life and you drop the when you drop the importance on certain things that is actually zapping your energy. My importance, the importance that I placed, or the value and how much I cared about whether or not my dad cared about what I did, and how much he understood what I did, took up so much of my energy that I was actually blocking myself from receiving stuff. And so, like, with that being a mirror to like money, it all just made sense. So this was my second lesson that led to the big breakthrough in April. I'm going to call that birthday month bonanza. The third lesson that I learned was everything you hear and experience is someone else's projection. Stand firm in the way that you see life. And this is a conversation I've had over and over again. I don't think there's ever truly right or wrong when it comes to advice that you can give, or an opinion or a belief you can have about someone else's life. But everything that you hear is a projection based off of that person's past experience, conditions, so beliefs that maybe they're not even aware of, but have been conditioned from previous generations, from their parents, from the way that they grew up. So everything is actually just our beliefs and our internal world. But like when we say and we experience, it's like us projecting it out, right? We are literally creating and speaking into existence the things that we want to call into our life. And I know you might have heard this example like used 100 times before, probably more. But it's like when you start to project that you want a yellow car, that's the vision that you hold in your mind. What do you start seeing everywhere? A yellow car. So the biggest lesson that I've learned when it comes to belief systems is, since no one's 100% right, like, like I was saying in the beginning, if you look for evidence that business is easy, you'll find that. If you look for evidence that business is hard, you'll also find that. So it's like being aware of what you're actually believing in this moment, and then deciding if that is still the belief that you want. And so understanding that no one can ever truly be right or wrong is so liberating. Take responsibility for your own beliefs. If you don't like something in your life, understand, like, where are you projecting that into your reality from the beliefs or the thoughts that you have, or the stories that you've created about how life is. And when I say stand firm in the way that you see life, is sometimes we can become seaweeds, right? So it's like maybe sometimes there's a really strong opinion and it comes and we go, oh, I'm going to believe this one day. And then, oh, I'm going to believe that one day. And then you do that long enough and you don't really know what you think. You don't know how to think. You've just been taught what to think. You've just been taught which way to go. You haven't been taught how to find your own direction in life. And I think that's more important when it comes to fulfillment and anything else, as an entrepreneur, because if you just wanted money, you'd probably go get a job. But it was the money and fulfillment and all the other things. So don't forget these other ands. So stand firm in the way that you see life, and trust yourself to learn the lessons as they come. Trust yourself to learn what you need to learn and to be open to being wrong. But I always say to my clients, and my, like, a mantra that I have in my life, a mantra that I have in my life is, I will be so confidently wrong. So I'm right and I'm right until I'm not. I'm right until I'm not. So I'm going to be confidently wrong, because where people don't learn and they repeat the same lessons again and again, or they repeat the same things over and over again, and it's like frustrating, is when they judge themselves for being wrong, for getting it wrong, for not learning. And this kind of comes back to the first point, which is, if you don't have the identity of someone who can get it wrong, you never fail. So everything is moving you forwards. So even you, like, you taking things wrong, you probably still got some, or like if you had a wrong belief or something like that, or you got something wrong, if you looked at your life and zoomed out and stopped getting emotional about it, you'd probably see that there were other parts of your life that you started getting that you actually got things right in, right? So stand firm in what you believe, but also be open to learning, because then, like, the one thing that you can count on in this world is for things to change, including your identity, including your beliefs. And I don't actually believe in this whole idea of like, we just lose an old identity. But we carry them, and it's almost like different costumes that we wear, and maybe sometimes we outgrow certain costumes. So like they're a little bit tighter and they're a little bit more uncomfortable to wear. And I believe that's life. And it's like you get to collect as many costumes as you want. And if you cycle through them enough, they'll always feel comfortable and, easy to wear. And like what comes to mind is that, like, hi, I'm Patricia. Like, it's just like whatever we choose to be in the moment. So stand firm in the way that you want to see life. And don't let someone else tell you what you should or shouldn't want for your life, what you should believe, or what you should expect, or what you think is reasonable. Question everything. Also, don't question anything. Life is just full of these funny dualities, isn't it? Don't make your entire life to question, but to make it a point to be an active learner, to, as the Bible say, like seek wisdom, seek to understand even more. Because the moment you close yourself off is the moment you stop learning. And I believe that's when we start to die. At least our spirit does. And this is actually really interesting because I heard this saying when I was in China. They said, like, you see these old people just like walking down the street, cycling, still doing their like exercise, being so active. Some of them being so old and they're just like riding their bikes. Like I'd be like, oh my gosh, how are you not in a wheelchair? So something to be learned. Anyway, maybe exercise is actually good for you. No, we're not here to have that conversation today. But I think one thing when I ask these elders, like, why are you so active? Like, isn't it your time to take it easy and to like retire? And they're like, no, the moment I stop moving is the moment I'll die. I'll start dying. And whether that's a self-imposed belief or whatnot, but they always have a story. It's like so and so, like 3 months after they retired and just stayed at home, they got sick and da, da, da. Like there's, you want to confirm a story, you'll find it. But yeah, I do believe there's something to that, which is like there is no maintenance. There is just growth or death. And arguably, our growth as a human is more important than anything else. So that was my third point. My fourth lesson, so this is bonus, I have two bonus ones. My fourth lesson is actually to slow down. And this has nothing about, this has got nothing to do with maybe you or maybe applicable to this season of your life, or maybe it does, but I just sent out an email today to, I'm going to share with you what I sent out to my clients. And it's an email that I've been sitting on for a while, which is why I say like it kind of felt like full circle because I'd been reflecting on like the first point, which is getting comfortable with failing and getting it right all the time is not the blessing, because I've been almost waiting for permission and an external thing to be like, okay, now it's time to move on to this next part. Or like almost like waiting for my clients to say, hey, do you have anything more? And I never want to be that coach or that person. So I pride myself on being ahead of the curve and someone who like likes to like grow. And like for me, just doing the same thing is boring. And so I sent out an email called like exciting changes ahead. After my 23rd birthday, I decided that I'm gifting myself peace, better boundaries, and no more gut issues. Um, that was a little joke. Anyway, so what I wanted to get at is the fourth point is actually to slow down. And no, I'm not taking my foot off of business, but like, I think what makes life really exciting is the polarity. So, what I was saying, how there's, like question yourself, but don't question yourself. That creates polarity because it's like you must have the periods where you're not questioning yourself and you're just doing, so that you can slow down and you can question yourself and you can learn from that time where you weren't. So I think we need that. It's just like basic chemistry, right? But I think I see this in business as well, is that especially when you have a lot of drive and you have a lot of ambition, you forget that sometimes you actually need to slow down to so that you're not constantly seeking the next high from your business, which, spoiler alert, a lot of the times it comes in the form of self-sabotage. You actually create fires in your business to put out so that you feel useful, unless you can learn to slow down and create a sense of fulfillment and a deep, like, so that even just the everyday running of your business remains exciting and you can actually strive towards goals and strive towards working on a bigger vision, that thing that you're like, oh my gosh, this is God, like, are you sure this is for me? Like, that type of vision comes from you not always needing to create a problem in your business so that you can fix it. And it's actually one that I say to my team is like, I don't ever want anything to be a fire. Don't ever come to me with an emergency. Don't ever come to me saying, what are the problems we need to solve, right? And if you, and no, okay, CEO hat on, we do need to solve problems. Sometimes there are things that come up, but I do dedicate very specific periods of time so that my nervous system is not trained and not wired to look for problems, i.e., create problems in my business. And I lightly touched on this in a post I did a while ago, which is like, taking myself on things like, taking myself out of business so that I can experience that bored, slow life so that I don't feel the need to feel bored in my business to then create problems to solve it. And this is an analogy that I always give to my clients, which is like the cat and the cheese experiment. So there was apparently supposedly, an experiment done with a rat in a tube. They wafted in the smell of a cat on one end, and obviously the rat ran away from the cat, and then they wafted in the smell of cheese on the other end, and obviously, and then they wafted in the smell of cheese, and the rat ran towards the cheese. So, you know, pain versus reward, pain versus gain. That's very catchy. Pain versus gain. And what was interesting though was the mouse ran further away, like ran faster away from the cat than it did towards the cheese. I think that's very evident and like transparent, or it's very evident even in human behavior, which is like we are so much more motivated by pain. It gets that initial movement going, than gain, right? We'll move slower towards gain, but that slower move towards gain is actually more beneficial in the long term because the stronger you get to it, the closer you get to it, the stronger the smell, the more motivated you will be. And so what I see is like people in business, it's almost like they smell the cat, they run away just far enough, and then they come back. They're like, I'm gonna see. And then it's like, oh, there's a certain point in which it's like, oh, okay, the danger is here. I'm gonna run away again. So they keep repeating this same length of their journey, same length, right? Whereas instead, we need to train our brains to be rewarded by the cheese. So instead of making my cat a problem in the business, I just decided to get bored, to slow down in my life. And this was actually a really big deal. And I think this is also like when you zoom out and look at like bigger social issues, like let's say even poverty, they say that it takes 3 generations to escape poverty, because I believe the first generation is like to make it from poverty to like kind of well off. The first generation is running away from a really strong smell of the cat. And then the middle generation, this is the toughest, like this is the toughest place to be. You're just comfortable enough where like the cat's probably there, but it's not close enough to make you sweat and you go like, oh, I need to get a move on. The cheese is also far enough away that you're like, am I really gonna like, is it really worth running after the cheese in this lifetime? Right. And so I think that's why also the middle class is the majority. Like people in the middle who are like just like maybe one accident away from danger and but like never quite can get ahead, right? I believe that like it's very apparent there. So you need to find ways where the good, the highs in business, that becomes your normal. You normalize that for your nervous system. And for me, that was living a slow life. And I actually like sent an email out, which was, I was like, yeah, I'm taking a slower approach to life, and this is why, and also sharing behind the scenes some of the ventures that I'm doing, and how I'm approaching it and how I'm putting it together into training and doing all of these things. And I was nervous to share this because I pride myself as someone who has a lot of drive, who has, a lot to give. But I think it's also like okay to show that on the other side of that, in order to maintain that drive, so I'm not creating fires that didn't need to exist, I can actually enjoy life, unplug, right? Be a little less available. And it was received really well, which I'm super grateful for. So that was a big lesson. So that was the fourth lesson, which is to slow down, prioritize peace, and actually make that a baseline. And I mentioned in that email better boundaries and whatnot. Uh, Now, my fifth and final lesson is actually to do the unscalable things. When it comes to scaling your business, I actually think, and this is like, this could be a whole masterclass in and of itself, but with the way that the market is shifting, people who do the unscalable things are going to win. People and brands who do the unscalable things are going to win. You can see this evidently because so many people are trying to scale passively, are trying to make passive income, are trying to do this. And you see like also the like faceless brands, the, faceless marketing, all of that, the rise of that. And I really think we're headed into an era. It's always been the case, but especially for those wanting, like, it's always been the case, I think, for small business owners, because you really have no choice but to do the unscalable things, because you don't have the infrastructure to support it. But I think for businesses, like doing the unscalable thing is going to yield you a far better return in the long run. Like I probably spend more time than I should writing my own content. I probably spend more time than I should responding to DMs and getting back to people like you messaging me right now. That's still me in the DMs. And if I can, wherever I can, I'll send voice notes. I will make sure that people know they're talking to me because, well, one, it is a personal brand. So I really value connection. And there are just sometimes I'll just crack jokes and I'm like, you need to hear the energy. Otherwise, when like the joke just doesn't come across in writing. So I'm really committed to doing the unscalable things. Like I'm running an experience that I could, like a lot of things I'm like, I could make money off of that. But the unscalable thing right now is actually to do the opposite. So those who seek ways to do the unscalable things, they're going to create this like golf club moment for themselves in business where they're going to do the unscalable things, and it's not going to look like it's paid off much, but then boom, all of a sudden it's going to go up, right? It's going to go vertical. So that was kind of what I did when it came to the 226K in 24 hours. Like that was me reaching out to people and like following up with people, asking people like, hey, what do you actually need? I don't have just one program that I'm like, yeah, or one offer that I'm like, yep, you're in here, let's go. Like, I actually take the time to sit with people, to dream with people, to go, oh my gosh, tell me your vision. Because maybe sometimes you just have a really cool vision, but I'm not the person to support it. Or maybe you have a vision and I am the perfect person to support it. And for as long as I can, I'm going to sit myself in that chair so that it's like I can be there. I can be the person who's like making sure everyone in my world is taken care of. And because I've done that, I've now built a really strong foundation for my brand where people are coming in and still getting that really intimate experience. And I get to prepare myself for massive growth in terms of visibility and growing my audience and growing a lot more one-to-many offers at much more accessible price points and at different price points so that I can serve a bigger community of people. I get to do that now because the standard in my world is no one, like everyone is going to be seen. And so because I've set that standard, I'm going to be able to scale with that, even if it's not scalable or not smart to do so. So that is my plan. And so it's also no surprise that like when I put out content, I actually want it to do well now, and it does. Right? Like my reach has gone up, a lot more new people joining my world, which is so amazing. And I truly believe that if I didn't come to this realization and actually have that like mental and like in body moment where I was like, it's actually okay to let more people in, I don't think I would have the level of success that I have now, or even the level, like the amount of eyeballs that I have on me right now. So I know I just really poured everything out into this video, but I hope this was so helpful. And I would love to hear your takeaways, love to hear your thoughts as always, and I can't wait to chat to you soon. If you get to the end of this, message me pineapple so I know. So I know who got to the end because I don't actually know how long it's been, but I super appreciate your time. Have a good day, have a good night, whatever time it is for you. And I am sure we will chat soon and I look forward to it. And bye. Catch you on the flippity flip. Catch you on the flippity flip. And I say that because I'm wearing an office shirt. So yeah, I appreciate you. Talk soon.